event. Let's see.
Pleasure.
I'm going to get straight to it, and I apologize in advance that a lot of this conversation, at least on the revenue side, is going to be, let's just break down the numbers for our viewers so they understand what's going on. So that's a warning going out to you beforehand. If I can talk about what is, I think, an important feel-good measure, which is the 1.1 crore small tax demands, which have been remitted. What is the thought process behind that? And what is the amount that will be foregone with that measure?
Yeah, so first of all, the numbers, we are improving on, the B, given the growth rate that we have seen. The revenues were projected to grow at the rate the economy was projected to grow, which is 10.5%. The economy, of course, as now projected by the latest estimates, is to grow at 8.9%, but as per our estimates, the RE is pegged at 12.5%, gives us a buoyancy of about 1.4. Next year again, they are projected to grow at 11.5% vis-a-vis nominal GDP growing at 10.5%. So that's again a buoyancy of more than 1, about 1.1. So this is insofar as the numbers are concerned. Yes, the Honorable Finance Minister did announce that small tax demands of less than 25,000 crore dating up to the financial year 9-10 and small tax demands up to 10,000 for the period between the financial years 10 and 14-15 will not be pursued and will be withdrawn. Basically, these demands, most of these demands are arising because of non-reconciliation, as she announced in the budget, or have not been verified, or are very, very small. And this has happened because till the year 9-10, all our records were decentralized. The PANs were also decentralized. From 10-11, we centralized the record keeping. There was a central processing center where all this data was migrated.
Absolutely.
So when this data migrated to the central processing center, many of the demands which actually had been paid by the taxpayers were not updated. And similarly, even after that, the systems that we have put in, the IT systems that we have put in place, because they could not, sometimes, because of technical errors, the payment is made on one system and the updation happens on another system. So there is a break in the link.
Exactly.
So most of these demands actually pertain to that. And so keeping in mind the inconvenience that it would cause to the taxpayers for especially demands dating back to 1962, 63, 64 onwards, where, they have not kept, obviously, records for having made those payments. And we also, do not have the records for many of those petty demands. It was thought by the Honorable Finance Minister that we should not pursue them, because then they get into the way of refunds. When we process the refunds, then the refunds get stuck.
And what does that total add up to?
So this, so there are about 58 lakh demand entries for the period up to 9-10, amounting to 25,000, less than 25,000 rupees each, and another 50 plus 55 lakh or so, about 1.1 crore demand entries. The total amount will be less than 3,500 crore rupees.
Okay, and I'm going to come back to revenue calculations, but sir, if I could pull you in, 7% GDP growth, 4 years in a row, if it works out for FY25, that's impressive. I'm going to pick some areas where there could be potential concerns going forward, and we had a chance to read your economic review document as well. Public investment has been driving this growth, private investment stepping up with equal ferocity. What will it take to achieve that? Do you see that playing out in FY25? What's some of the deep dive insights you can share?
Well, it's not going to play out in FY25. It's been playing out already.
the private investment pickup. And what is going to drive it? The fact that the corporate balance sheets, you look at the net financial savings of private corporate sector, in the last 3 years, it's been positive. Earlier years, when they were trying to improve their balance sheets, trim their debt by selling off assets, etc., their net financial negative. In the last 3 years, you look at they have been achieving surpluses, which means the corporate sector not only has its own internal resources, but now it has a banking sector that is willing to lend. You see the non-food credit growth, excluding personal loans, growing at 13%. You look at the buoyancy in the capital markets with IPOs and also external markets. Interest rates have peaked in many countries in the world. So I think all the boxes are ticked for the private corporate sector to scale up its investments, and we are seeing that in the data. Listed companies have been increasing their capex, and it is beginning to happen already.
I think that everyone who heard the budget speech today, economists, analysts, they find the fiscal math sound, the budget math sound. They are optimistic based on the fiscal prudence approach that the government is taking, with 5.1% fiscal deficit set for FY25. Could potentially anything be a wild card that you'd like to flag off, something that could go wrong?
Well, on the contrary, I would say 5.1% is extremely realistic. This is just a payoff for being prudent and transparent over the last 4 or 5 years. And Sanjay was responding to your earlier question about the buoyancy rates that we have assumed, etc. And we have assumed only 10.5% nominal GDP growth for FY25. And the fact that we could achieve a 5.8% fiscal deficit, despite the fact the nominal GDP growth is going to be around 9% this year, is a testimony to the buoyancy of the economy, not just the collection efforts and use of technology, etc. All those things played a part, but the underlying economic momentum is there. You see it in the e-way bills. Number of e-way generated and the GST that's being collected, etc. So, and you see it in the purchasing managers indices, which have been above 50 for almost 2 to 3 years now. So I think there is an underlying economic momentum, and therefore, and we are not banking on it fully. We are only understating the amount of nominal GDP growth we can assume, etc. So I think wildcards will always be there, and we can imagine them, but it's a preponderance of probability. The preponderance of probability is in favor of us being able to meet this 5.1%.
Good to hear that. Non-tax revenue, if you can do some sort of number clarity on that front, whether it comes from divestment or it comes from the dividend path for the government, the FY25 number, how does it look? How does it break up?
Yeah, so that's an important component. Non-tax revenue is almost 4 lakh crore, 3.75 lakh crore to be precise for this year, vis-a-vis less than 3 lakh crore. So it's an increase of about 33% this year, which is huge. Yes, major contributors for them are, number one, the dividends from RBI, from the financial institutions, from the PSUs. So this contributes. Then there is, as you mentioned, disinvestment. Then there is a lot of non-tax revenue, or royalty from the telecom sector, and there are other fees, etc. So these are primarily the 3 components of non-tax revenue.
Sure. I was trying to get a number sort of that you're working with for FY25 for 2 categories in particular, the dividend category and the divestment, if you can shed some light on that.
So my colleague, Secretary Deepam, will be here. I think he's joining you. And I'll leave it to him, to answer and to give you, the numbers on the disinvestment. But let me tell you, that we don't have any separate number for disinvestment. It's a number for disinvestment plus monetization of other assets, etc. So it's a combined head. There is no separate head for disinvestment. But I leave it to Secretary Deepam to share more on this.
Okay. I think it's fair that there weren't any tax changes announced in this budget. It is an interim budget ahead of a general election, and we'll have to wait till July. But I'm trying to just get, like many of the points made by the finance minister in the speech, were indicators of what, lies ahead for India in the months through the summer, etc. Is there a strong case now building up for rationalization of, whether it's TDS, whether it's capital gains? Is there a strong thinking on that front?
No, let's stick to,
Okay.
what we did today.
Okay.
Yes, of course, we have been, and FM did mention that in the last 5 years, we have been trying, our focus has been to simplify things and to make, and to improve, taxpayer services. And so if there is any rationalization to be done, with regard to any of these things, then well, certainly, we would be having a look at those. But there's no specific thing, on the cards or on the table as of now.
I wanted to come back to, and I'm not saying this because I'm just a pessimist by nature. I'm saying this because, we've seen some of the shocks coming from the global economy, and India has withstood them admirably. In light of that, I'm wondering, sir, with the global growth picture likely to be fairly subdued, the India export story, does that translate on very basic terms to a subdued story as well?
I agree with you. I mean, in fact, one of the reasons why we in last year's survey and also here saying growth rate is between 6.5 and 7, etc. on average in the medium term, we aren't assuming a big kicker coming out of the net exports. But that said, the services sector exports are growing at about 7 to 8%. And because imports also both in services and in the merchandise sectors have come down, the overall service sector trade surplus has been maintained. And the fact that the merchandise sector, which showed a big jump in 21-22, is hanging on to those improvement. And we are seeing, and as we wrote in our collection of essays, which we brought out in November, we are expanding our basket of exportable goods and also tapping into newer markets. So whatever comes from the net exports as a contribution to GDP growth, we will take it as an additional unexpected or icing on the cake or the bonus. We are not making assumptions on that, given, as what you said, given the uncertain global growth environment.
Okay, I just want to...
Let me add, of course, as he said, globally trade is down. The positive thing is that we are not, as much down, because globally, trade is down by about 4.5% and we are still growing. So that's certainly a dampener, but we are doing better than others.
Indeed, and that point has been sort of well absorbed. I wanted to put the ball in your court. As architects of this interim budget, what is that one thing that you think may have been missed or needs to be definitely highlighted from an economy, growth, resilience perspective, and from a revenue path that the government is pursuing? Would you like to go first?
Revenue, as I mentioned, and as in fact, the Honorable Finance Minister mentioned, that we have been trying to improve the services, we have been trying to improve compliance, we have been trying to widen and deepen the tax base. So that is one work that will continue to engage our attention without increasing the tax rates. And that is what has been demonstrated, and that is what, that is one takeaway that this budget can have insofar as taxation is concerned.
And technology playing a greater role in ease of facilitation.
Exactly.
I would highlight two things. In fact, I had highlighted them in my preface to the economic review. One is there is not enough appreciation of the way the health and economic fallout of COVID has been managed, which is what exactly led to the quick recovery and its sustenance, and also being able to secure energy supplies in the last 2 years in a very fraught geopolitical environment by walking the fine balance. And the second thing that is underappreciated is the quality of growth. Being able to grow at 7% when the world economy is growing at between 2 to 3% is much more qualitatively superior to what we could achieve by growing at 8 to 9% when the world economy was growing at between 4 and 5%. I covered these aspects in the preface to my economic review.
And I don't know if we have the time and space to deep dive into it, but a statement in the finance minister's speech on, a 50% increase in real income average real income?
Yeah.
Any sort of clarity you can shed on that?
I think basically it was between FY14 and FY23 real per capita gross national income went up by 53% or 56% in this period, and also real per capita GDP growth in this cumulatively in this 9-year period. That's what she was referring to.
Okay, good to get that clarity. Gentlemen, thank you for your time and insights, and look forward to reconvening for the full budget.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.